London, 1855. The letter trembled in Hannah Osgood's hands as she stood in her employer's study, heart pounding beneath her plain black dress. She had never intended to steal, yet there it was, the Earl of Thornfield's private correspondence, tucked between her fingers like a burning coal. "What are you doing in my study, Miss Osgood?" She whirled around, face flushing crimson as Lord Thornfield himself stood in the doorway. Connor Thornfield, 6th Earl of Thornfield, regarded her with those piercing grey eyes that had caused many a society lady to swoon. At 32, he remained London's most eligible bachelor, wealthy, handsome, and utterly unattainable to someone like her. "My lord, forgive me," Hannah stammered, hastily tucking the letter into her pocket. "I was merely dusting." His eyebrow arched skeptically. "Without a duster?" Hannah's mind raced desperately. After 3 months as lady's maid to his cousin Lady Margaret, she had managed to remain largely invisible to the Earl. "Until now." "I was checking for the drafts, my lord." Lady Margaret complained of a chill. The Earl stepped closer, his tall frame imposing in the dim light. "A curious explanation, Miss Osgood, particularly as my cousin resides in the East Wing, not here in my private quarters." Hannah clutched her hands together to stop their trembling. "I got turned around, my lord. These grand houses are confusing to someone like me." "Indeed." His voice was cool, controlled. "And what of the letter you've just concealed?" Her heart sank. "Letter, my lord." He extended his hand. "Come now, I saw you pocket it. Return it at once, and perhaps I'll consider not dismissing you without references." Without references, the words every servant dreaded. She would never find decent employment again. Her sister would be doomed. "Please, my lord," she whispered, reluctantly withdrawing the letter. "I meant no harm." As he took the letter, his fingers brushed hers, and something unfamiliar flickered in his eyes before he glanced down at the correspondence. "This is addressed to Dr. Richard Trent," he said, surprise evident in his voice. "My personal physician." "You're stealing my correspondence with my doctor." "I wasn't stealing, I was—" She stopped abruptly. "You were what, Miss Osgood?" His voice had softened dangerously. "I suggest you speak the truth now, as your situation cannot possibly worsen." Hannah closed her eyes briefly, knowing her sister's future hung in the balance. "My sister is ill, my lord. Very ill. The doctors in Cheapside don't know what's wrong with her." I hoped your physician might mention treatments in his letters that could help her." The Earl stared at her for a long moment. "You have a sister?" "Yes, my lord. Eleanor. She's all I have in the world." He studied the letter once more, then folded it deliberately. "Come with me." Not to be dismissed immediately, then, but perhaps he preferred to do so in front of the housekeeper, to make an example of her. Hannah followed him through the magnificent corridors of Thornfield House, its opulence a stark reminder of the vast gulf between their stations. To her surprise, he led her not to the servants' hall but to a small sitting room she had never entered before. "Sit," he commanded, gesturing to a chair that probably cost more than her yearly wages. Hannah perched on its edge, hands folded in her lap. "Now, explain to me about your sister." "Everything." Something in his tone, not kindness, precisely, but not cruelty either, loosened Hannah's tongue. "Eleanor is 19, 2 years younger than I. Our parents died 3 years ago of influenza. I took this position to support us both. For months now, she's been growing weaker. Her breathing is labored, she coughs blood, and she's wasting away despite my best efforts." "Consumption," he said quietly. Hannah nodded miserably. "I feared as much, but without a proper diagnosis." She straightened her shoulders. "I know what I did was wrong, my lord. But I would do anything for my sister." The Earl walked to the window, his back to her as he gazed out at the manicured gardens. "My mother died of consumption when I was 12. It's a terrible way to die." Hannah's eyes widened at this unexpected confidence. He turned back to her. "I admire your devotion, Miss Osgood, misguided as your actions were. Where is your sister now? In our rooms in Cheapside. A neighbour looks in on her when she can. He nodded once. Decision made. I will have Dr. Trent examine her. Hannah gasped. My lord, I couldn't possibly consider it a punishment far more fitting than dismissal, he interrupted. You wished for my physician's expertise, now you shall have it, along with the knowledge that you are indebted to the man whose trust you betrayed. Thank you, she whispered, overcome. I don't know how to repay such kindness. It isn't kindness, Miss Osgood. It's justice. And should you ever enter my study without permission again, you will find I can be far less merciful. Dr. Trent confirmed Hannah's fears. Eleanor had consumption. But unlike the Cheapside doctors, he offered hope, the treatment regimen and the possibility of recovery if Eleanor could get country air and proper nutrition. Impossible on my salary, Hannah murmured as they stood in her humble lodgings, Eleanor sleeping fitfully in the next room. Perhaps not, Dr. Trent said thoughtfully. I shall speak with Lord Thornfield. 2 days later, Hannah was summoned to the Earl's study, properly this time, with a footman as escort. Dr. Trent tells me your sister requires country air, Lord Thornfield said without preamble as she curtsied. Yes, my lord. I have a property in Kent. My late aunt's cottage. It sits unused except for a caretaker and his wife. He shuffled some papers on his desk. I'm sending Lady Margaret there for the summer. Her health has been delicate since her husband's death, and London's air doesn't suit her. You will accompany her, naturally, and your sister may join you there to recuperate. Hannah's knees nearly buckled. My lord, I cannot express, spare me your gratitude, Miss Osgood, he cut in. Lady Margaret requires a companion, and you've proven quite determined when it comes to medical matters. Consider it a mutually beneficial arrangement. Hannah left the study in a daze of hope. Only later did she wonder why the Earl of Thornfield, known for his aloofness and rigid adherence to propriety, would extend such extraordinary consideration to a maid who had tried to steal his correspondence. Kent bloomed with summer's bounty as Eleanor's cheeks gained colour. The cottage, but cottage only by aristocratic standards, with 6 bedrooms and extensive gardens, provided the perfect retreat. Lady Margaret, a gentle widow of 30, proved a kind mistress who genuinely enjoyed Hannah's company and didn't object to Eleanor's presence. The air agrees with you, Hannah told her sister as they strolled through the garden one June afternoon. As does not coughing my lungs out every hour, Eleanor replied with a faint smile. I feel almost human again. She paused by a rose bush. But you haven't told me how this miracle came about. A maid sister doesn't typically accompany her to a summer residence. Hannah adjusted Eleanor's shawl. Lady Margaret is generous. Lady Margaret barely knew of my existence until we arrived. This was Lord Thornfield's doing, wasn't it? Hannah sighed. How did you know? The way you tense whenever his name is mentioned. And Dr. Trent let slip that it was the Earl who arranged everything. Eleanor studied her sister. What did you do to earn such favour from one of England's most powerful men? I tried to steal his letters, Hannah admitted ruefully, explaining the whole incident. Eleanor's eyes widened. Hannah! You could have been imprisoned. I know. I was desperate. And instead of punishment, he sent us, here. Eleanor shook her head in wonder. He must be the most unusual aristocrat in England. He considers this my punishment, being indebted to him. Eleanor's smile turned sly. Is he handsome, this mysterious benefactor? Hannah busied herself with a nearby flower. I suppose some might think so. You suppose? Eleanor teased. Come now, Hannah. Even half dead with consumption, I would notice if a man looked like Lord Thornfield. He's striking, Hannah admitted. But it hardly matters. He's an earl, and I'm a lady's maid who tried to steal from him. Stranger things have happened, Eleanor mused. Perhaps don't, Hannah interrupted firmly. Don't spin fairy tales. We're here for your health, nothing more. But that night, as Hannah brushed Lady Margaret's hair before bed, the conversation took an unexpected turn. "My cousin arrives tomorrow," Lady Margaret announced. Hannah's brush faltered. "Lord Thornfield is coming here." "Indeed. He claims it's to check on the property, but I suspect he's fleeing Lady Pembroke's matchmaking. The poor woman has been throwing her daughter at him for 3 seasons. Hannah concentrated on the rhythmic strokes of the brush. "I'm sure his lordship has many ladies vying for his attention." Lady Margaret chuckled. "Oh, certainly. But Connor has always been particular. My late husband used to say Connor would sooner die a bachelor than marry without genuine affection." "A romantic notion for an earl," Hannah observed. "Connor has always defied expectations. Did you know he established a hospital for poor children in Whitechapel? Or that he personally oversees the education of every tenant child on his estates?" Lady Margaret met Hannah's eyes in the mirror. "My cousin guards his privacy fiercely, but his actions speak volumes about his character." Hannah said nothing, but her heart beat a little faster at this glimpse of the man behind the title. Lord Thornfield arrived the following afternoon while Hannah was reading to Eleanor in the garden. She didn't notice him until Eleanor nudged her sharply. "My lord." Hannah scrambled to her feet, nearly dropping her book. "We didn't hear your approach." He looked different here, away from London's formality. His tall frame was dressed in a simple riding coat, his dark hair slightly windblown. "Miss Osgood. And this must be your sister." Eleanor managed a curtsy despite her weakness. "My lord, I cannot thank you enough for your generosity. You look improved from Dr. Trent's description," he said, studying her with those penetrating eyes. "Thanks to your kindness," Eleanor replied. "Though my sister insists it's a punishment rather than charity." Hannah shot her sister a warning look, but to her surprise, the Earl's mouth curved in what might almost be called a smile. "Your sister understands me well." His gaze shifted to Hannah. "How are you finding Kent, Miss Osgood?" "Beautiful, my lord. Eleanor improves daily." He nodded, satisfied. "Good. I shall not disturb your reading further." With a slight bow, he continued toward the house. "You didn't tell me his eyes were so expressive," Eleanor whispered once he was out of earshot. "Hush," Hannah scolded, but she couldn't help watching his retreating figure. The Earl's presence changed the cottage's atmosphere. Meals became more formal, with Hannah serving rather than joining Lady Margaret as she sometimes did when they were alone. Yet Lord Thornfield often found reasons to engage her in conversation, asking about Eleanor's progress, inquiring whether the accommodations were satisfactory, even discussing the books she read to her sister. One evening, after Eleanor had retired and Lady Margaret begged off dinner with a headache, Hannah found herself unexpectedly alone with Lord Thornfield in the small library. "My lord. Forgive me, I didn't realize you were here." She began to withdraw. "Stay, Miss Osgood," he said, setting aside his book. "I've been hoping for an opportunity to speak with you privately." Alarm flickered through her. "Is something amiss?" "Not at all." He gestured to the chair opposite his. "Please." She sat reluctantly, hands folded in her lap. "Your sister's health improves," he observed. "Yes, remarkably so. Dr. Trent says another month of country air should see her well enough to return to London, though she'll need ongoing care." He nodded thoughtfully. "And what then, Miss Osgood? Will you return to your position as Lady Margaret's maid?" "If she'll have me, my lord." "And your sister?" Hannah hesitated. "I've been setting aside what I can from my wages. Perhaps we can find better lodgings, away from the worst of the smoke. On a lady's maid's salary." His tone wasn't unkind, merely practical. "I have few alternatives, my lord." He studied her for a long moment. "What if you did?" "My lord?" "Have alternatives," he clarified. "Lady Margaret mentioned you were educated at a decent school before your parents' passing." Hannah nodded cautiously. "My father was a clerk at a shipping firm. He believed in education, even for daughters." Can you manage household accounts? Write correspondence? Oversee staff? Yes, though I've had little opportunity to practice such skills recently. He leaned forward. I find myself in need of a housekeeper for this property. The previous one retired last year, and the position remains unfilled. Hannah stared at him, speechless. The cottage needs someone who can manage it year-round, whether my family is in residence or not. The position includes accommodation suitable for you and your sister. My lord, I don't understand. Why would you offer me such a position? Something flickered in his eyes. Perhaps I recognize capability when I see it. Or perhaps I'm still punishing you by binding you more tightly to my generosity. Is that truly your aim, my lord? To punish me? For a moment, his careful mask slipped. No, Miss Osgood. It is not. The air between them seemed to thicken with unspoken words. Consider my offer, he said finally, rising. We'll speak again when you've had time to reflect. After he departed, Hannah remained in the library, her thoughts in turmoil. The position he offered would solve so many problems: Eleanor's health, their lodgings, their precarious finances. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper lay beneath his proposal, something neither of them dared name. As July ripened into August, Hannah found herself spending more time in Lord Thornfield's company. What began as discussions about the housekeeper position evolved into wider conversations, about books, about London's changing landscape, about the social reforms he quietly supported. He seemed to value her opinions, a novel experience for a woman who had spent years being overlooked. One warm afternoon, she encountered him in the orchard, inspecting the apple trees. A good crop this year, he remarked as she approached. Indeed, my lord. The caretaker's wife has been teaching Eleanor to make preserves. He plucked an early apple and offered it to her. And have you considered my proposal? About the housekeeper position. I have. She accepted the fruit, their fingers brushing momentarily. It's a generous offer, and one that would benefit Eleanor tremendously. But, he prompted, hearing her hesitation. Hannah met his gaze directly. But I wonder at your motives, my lord. Such generosity toward a servant who attempted to steal from you defies explanation. His expression grew serious. Does it? Perhaps I simply recognize value where others might not. Value in a lady's maid. Value in a woman of intelligence, determination, and unwavering loyalty to those she loves. His voice had softened. Such qualities are rare in any circle, Miss Osgood. Hannah's heart fluttered traitorously. My lord, Connor, he interrupted. When we're alone, I would have you call me Connor. I couldn't possibly, you could. If you wished to. The air between them seemed charged with possibility, and for one breathless moment, Hannah thought he might step closer, might bridge the impossible gap between earl and servant. Instead, he straightened, his expression cooling. Forgive me. I've spoken out of turn. No, you, good day, Miss Osgood. He walked away, leaving her with the apple in her hand and confusion in her heart. That evening, a letter arrived from London that visibly disturbed Lord Thornfield. After reading it, he announced his immediate return to town on urgent business. Will you return, cousin? Lady Margaret asked as they dined. Of course. Within a week, I expect. His eyes flicked briefly to Hannah, who stood attending them. I have unfinished business here. He departed at dawn, leaving Hannah oddly bereft, as though sunshine had been temporarily withdrawn from the garden. 3 days after Lord Thornfield's departure, the London papers arrived with their usual delay. Lady Margaret gasped as she unfolded the Times at breakfast. Good heavens! What is it, my lady? Hannah asked, pouring her tea. Lady Margaret passed her the paper. It seems my cousin has become the subject of some rather vivid speculation. Hannah scanned the society column, her blood running cold as she read, Society watchers wonder what keeps the elusive Earl of Thornfield at his Kent estate this summer. Sources close to the family whisper of a mysterious female companion, not of gentle birth, who has captured the attention of London's most eligible bachelor. Has the Earl finally fallen, and to a most unsuitable quarter? Lady Pembroke is said to be distraught at the prospect, having long hoped for a match between the Earl and her daughter. Ridiculous gossip, Hannah managed, returning the paper with trembling hands. Lady Margaret studied her closely. Is it? My cousin has changed these past weeks. He smiles more freely. He speaks with animation. And he watches you, Hannah, when he thinks no one notices. My lady, please. Such talk will only feed rumours that could damage his lordship's reputation. Connor has never cared for society's opinion, Lady Margaret replied. But I wonder if you care more for his position than he does himself. Before Hannah could respond, they were interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Trent, come for his weekly examination of Eleanor. Excellent progress, he declared afterward. The fresh air and proper nutrition have worked wonders. Another few weeks, and she might be well enough to consider suitable employment. Employment? Hannah echoed. Lord Thornfield mentioned you might need assistance finding an appropriate position for your sister once she recovers. He suggested I inquire at the Royal College of Nursing. They're establishing a training program for young women of good character but limited means. Hannah's surprise must have shown on her face, for Dr. Trent added, His Lordship takes a keen interest in medical education. He's one of the college's principal benefactors. That night, Hannah lay awake contemplating the Earl's generosity, not just to her, but apparently to countless others through his philanthropic work. Why had he never mentioned these endeavours? Why cultivate the image of an aloof aristocrat when his actions revealed such compassion? And why, despite all reason, did her heart leap at the thought of his return? Lord Thornfield reappeared a week later, as promised, but his demeanour had changed. Though unfailingly polite, he seemed distant, almost cold, particularly toward Hannah. He made no mention of the housekeeper position, nor did he seek her company as he had before. After 3 days of this treatment, Hannah cornered him in the library. Have I offended you, my lord? He looked up from his correspondence, surprise flickering across his features before his expression smoothed. Not at all, Miss Osgood. Why do you ask? You've barely spoken 3 words to me since your return. He set down his pen. I've been preoccupied with estate matters. Is that truly the reason? Or did you perhaps see the article in the Times? A muscle twitched in his jaw. I saw it. Then you know why you must distance yourself. Your reputation, my reputation has survived worse, he interrupted. That's not why I've kept my distance. Then why? He stood abruptly. Because I realized the danger of my position. Because in London, I was reminded forcefully of the world to which I belong and the responsibilities I cannot escape. I understand perfectly, my lord. Hannah lifted her chin. You need not explain further. No, you don't understand. He rounded the desk, stopping just short of her. I withdrew not to protect myself from scandal, but to protect you. Protect me? From what? From me. His voice had dropped to barely more than a whisper. From the impossibility of what I feel for you. From the pain that would inevitably follow if I allowed myself to act on those feelings. Hannah's heart thundered in her chest. And what feelings are those, my lord? Connor, he corrected softly. When we're alone, I am simply Connor. What feelings, Connor, she repeated, hardly believing her own boldness. He reached out, his fingers hovering near her cheek without quite touching. Feelings that make me question everything I was raised to believe about duty and station. Feelings that began the moment you stood in my study, defiant and determined to save your sister at any cost. Hannah closed her eyes briefly. Such feelings can lead nowhere. Can they not? His hand finally made contact, gently cupping her cheek. I've spent my life conforming to expectations while quietly rebelling against injustice where I could. Perhaps it's time I rebelled more openly. The scandal would be tremendous. I care little for that. He studied her face. But I would not subject you to society's cruelty without your full consent and understanding of what you would face. Hannah's mind reeled with the implications. Are you suggesting? I suggest nothing yet, he interrupted. I merely confess what I can no longer deny, that you have awakened something in me I thought long dead. That when I am with you, I feel more truly myself than I have ever been. Connor, she whispered, the name still foreign on her tongue. Tell me to stop, he murmured, leaning closer. Tell me I'm a fool who doesn't know his own mind. Instead, Hannah lifted her face to his, and his lips met hers in a kiss so tender it brought tears to her eyes. When they parted, he rested his forehead against hers. This path will not be easy. Few worthwhile paths are, she replied. A discreet cough from the doorway shattered the moment. They turned to find Lady Margaret watching them with a mixture of surprise and satisfaction. I came to inform you that Eleanor has taken a turn, she said. Dr. Trent has been sent for. Hannah's world tilted. A turn? But she was improving. Connor squeezed her hand. Go to her. We'll speak later. Eleanor's setback proved temporary, a mild fever that Dr. Trent attributed to overexertion rather than a recurrence of consumption. Nevertheless, it served as a stark reminder of her fragility and Hannah's precarious position. As August waned, Hannah found herself torn between joy and dread, joy in the quiet moments with Connor, dread at the inevitable end of their summer idyll. Though he spoke often of a future together, the practical obstacles seemed insurmountable. Your family would never accept such a match, she told him one evening as they walked in the garden after the household had retired. My closest family is Margaret, who adores you, he countered. The distant cousins who might object have no influence over my decisions. And what of society? Your peers? The ton will cut you dead. He shrugged. Many already consider me eccentric for my philanthropic work. This would merely confirm their opinion. Your political influence would suffer. Perhaps. Or perhaps my voice might carry more weight on certain matters, coming from someone who has crossed the very boundaries others seek to maintain. Hannah shook her head in wonder. You've thought this through. Thoroughly. He took her hands in his. Hannah Osgood, I love you. Not despite your station, but because of who you are, your courage, your intellect, your unwavering heart. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Though she had half expected the proposal, the reality of it stole her breath. Connor, before you answer, he interrupted, know that I've already taken steps to smooth our path. I've spoken with Dr. Trent about a position for Eleanor at the nursing college, with accommodations included. And I've drafted letters to my solicitors regarding settlements that would ensure your independence regardless of how society receives our match. Tears welled in Hannah's eyes. You've thought of everything. Not everything, he admitted. I cannot predict every challenge we'll face. But I know that facing them with you will make them bearable. Hannah gazed up at the man who had transformed from stern employer to beloved over the course of a summer. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I will marry you. His smile outshone the stars as he drew her into his arms. The Gazette, October 1855. Society was shocked this week by the marriage of Connor Thornfield, the 6th Earl of Thornfield, to Miss Hannah Osgood, formerly employed as lady's maid to his cousin, the widowed Lady Margaret Sinclair. The ceremony, held at the Earl's country estate in Kent, was attended by a small gathering that notably included several prominent reformers and philanthropists, though few members of the ton. Sources close to the couple report that the unusual match grew from the Earl's admiration for Miss Osgood's devotion to her ailing sister, whom his lordship helped restore to health at his country estate this summer. Miss Eleanor Osgood, the bride's sister, has recently been accepted to the Royal College of Nursing's inaugural training program, with recommendations from the Earl himself. While many in society circles express shock at the mesalliance, others point to Lord Thornfield's long-standing support of progressive causes as evidence that the match is perfectly in character for the unconventional peer. Lady Pembroke, when approached for comment, would say only that Lord Thornfield has always been guided by his principles rather than convention. The newlyweds are expected to honeymoon in Italy before returning to London for the little season, where all eyes will be watching to see how the new Countess of Thornfield is received in the very circles her husband has so boldly defied. Connor tossed aside the newspaper with a chuckle. They make it sound as though I've committed treason rather than married the woman I love. Hannah looked up from her correspondence at the desk by the window, sunlight turning her hair to honey gold. Haven't you? Treason against the sacred order of society. He crossed the room to stand behind her chair, his hands resting lightly on her shoulders. If loving you is treason, then I plead guilty with no remorse. She reached up to cover his hand with hers. The real scandal would be if they knew how it all began, with me stealing your letters. Attempting to steal, he corrected with a smile. You were rather inept at burglary, thank goodness. And yet it led to this. She gestured around them, at the elegant Venetian hotel suite with its view of the Grand Canal. Connor bent to kiss the top of her head. I think of it as the most fortunate failure of your life. And the most fortunate discovery of yours. She rose to face him, sliding her arms around his waist. Do you regret it? The scandal, the whispers that will follow us back to London? Not for a moment. His eyes held hers, filled with the same tenderness that had first given her hope. Some treasures are worth any price. As their lips met, Hannah marveled at the journey that had brought them here, from a stolen letter to stolen hearts, from suspicion to trust, from impossibility to love. Society might whisper, but they would face it together, the maid and the Earl, who had both found something far more valuable than status. They had found home in each other's hearts.